Hey guys, today on the Fuel and Recovery podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about Jim and the mystery of his missing foot. That's right. But more importantly, we're going to talk about B1 vitamin or vitamin, if you're from the UK, fun to say, deficiency, and why you're dealing with that right now on the road to recovery. Okay, see you soon.
Incoming!
All right, guys, welcome back to the Fueling Recovery Podcast. I am GTV Mansfeld, your host here at the Fueling Recovery Podcast. Let's get right into the story that I was telling you about, and that's Jim and this mysteriously missing foot. Okay. So when I lived in Daytona Beach, there was a bar that sits right across the street. If you're familiar with Daytona Beach, they have an arch right as you enter the beach. It says Daytona Beach. Right across the street is this little hole in the wall bar. Nothing fancy about it at all. Maybe some motorcycles outside. And I used to walk in there all the time. And the thing is, they would spot me, right? They'd spot me a big boy, Pabst Blue Rabbit ribbon big boy, right? And I'd pay them later that day or that week or never. I think last time I skipped out on that or something. I probably need to call them. But anyway, so in that bar, a lot of characters used to travel in and out of there, and one of which was a man named Jim. Now, if you saw Jim, you would immediately say he's homeless. I mean, he just looks, scraggly beard, not kept, and clothes kind of raggedy. But the thing about it, I mean, Jim used to ride into there on a golden chariot wheelchair. I mean, this thing had all the bells and whistles. It was pimped out. He had mirrors everywhere. It beeped when you backed up. He had, bumper stickers all over it. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe he's got some money because those things aren't cheap, right? And so, the thing about it, he had this fantastic wheelchair, but he didn't have a foot, right? So I think I'd rather opt for the foot. So he used to buy everybody drinks at the bar, and he used to buy me drinks, and that's why I chatted it up with him. I chop it up. And one day I got up the courage to ask him, and I said, "Hey, Jim, what's up with the missing foot?" So here I am. I'm preparing myself for this glorious war story, right? Where he's walking in Iraq and he has a bomb sniffing dog and they blow up and he's thrown and the dog dies, unfortunately. And he gets the Purple Heart and Medal of Honor for saving his brothers. But that's not what I got. Jim didn't say a word. He just looked at me and pointed to his big boy and then looked straight dead on. I'm like, man, that's what it is. The alcoholism that he's been dealing with his whole life took his foot. It took his foot. Now, you would think that scared the ethanol out of me, but, I just ordered another big boy. We went on about it. Probably a year or so later, when I started recovery, I started to think about how did he lose his foot? How does that cause, you to lose your extremities? And I came up with a couple things. There is a syndrome that you get from a B1 deficiency. And this syndrome is Korsakoff or something like that is the syndrome. You can Google it if you Google wet brain. Okay, so you've heard wet brain maybe in the 50s, some old cowboy movie. Oh, Bob's got the wet brain, right? And they're talking about the town drunk generally. Well, always. They're talking about the town drunk's got the wet brain. And how they know he's got the wet brain? Well, he's disoriented. He can never remember anything. He's constant brain fog. He's confused. And maybe he's in a coma. So if you don't have any of those symptoms, right, you're not in a coma right now, hopefully not, then you don't have wet brain. Okay, so you don't really have well, you do have to worry about it. Let's put it that way. If you continue down, you exit that road of recovery, and you continue binging and going down that alcoholic path, that's something you can end up with, and it's something that's so serious that it's irreversible once it's full on. All right. Now, fortunately, There is a condition prior to getting there where you can jump off the train, the brain train, okay? And that's called berry. It sounds very tropical, I know. And they're serving up drinks there. Dry berry, wet berry, right? And maybe there's some folks there. There's beautiful people. There's beautiful women, beautiful guys. They're playing volleyball by the beach, sundown, sun setting, sort of like the beer commercials. Picture that. Okay. So those guys are on an island called Berry. And berry, there's two types again. There's wet and dry. So if you think about wet berry, let's think about your blood, your cardiovascular, your heart. So wet blood, kind of learn it that way. So that's going to be an immediate danger to you as far as cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, palpitations, everything to deal with the cardiovascular system when you have wet berry. Now the second is dry berry. And dry berry has to do with your nervous system, your nerves. So what you'll see with dry berry, and I suffered from this, is tingling in your hands, your extremities, your peripheral neuropathy is what they call it. Your toes will feel numb sometimes. It's very symmetrical, so it's going to be on both sides, okay? The thing about it is when you first experience those symptoms, maybe early on in your drinking career, they tend to go away pretty quick. So if you stop drinking, no problem, like it never happened. Then you do it again. You go on another binge. You drink some more, another year. Then you stop. And secondly, it comes back worse, and it takes longer to exit, right? So you keep doing this over a number of years. I mean, by the time you build that up, it may be a year or two before you stop having those symptoms. Very painful. So generally, it's worse at night and overnight. So what happens in the morning, you wake up, you can't even walk. The arches hurt, the toes are numb, or your arm is numb. You're getting cramps, all kind of things. So those are the two types of berry, whereby once you start having those symptoms, you can kind of jump the plane and parachute to safety, okay? So B1, about the B1 vitamin thymine. So if you've ever been into the hospital, which most of us have, right, in recovery or rehab or something, they're going to give you a drip of sodium chloride, and typically what they'll throw in there is the B1, is thymine. Because the thing about thymine, it's not a B vitamin that you store, like a B12, which you can get back to good, kind of stay on top of, maintain, build up. Thymine is water soluble and it's in and out, man. And the thing about it being in and out is you need a supply of this every day, only about 1.6 milligrams, something like that. And you don't need very much, but you do need it every day. And if you're not eating correctly or the correct foods to have it, you're not going to have it in your bloodstream. In addition, if you're in the road to recovery, maybe early here, or maybe you haven't stopped yet, haven't taken that step, it's non-existent. You're going to pee that right out. I mean, as soon as you get any B1. And you could take supplements. They have very good supplements, which I do encourage after we fix your gut, after we get you on a good road, to try to jumpstart the process of metabolizing B1. But until that time, it's really not going to do you any good. So what you got to do is take a radical approach to nutritional recovery. And so nutritional recovery, if you think about it like this, most step programs, AA, Smart Recovery, Regen, there's a lot of faith-based Celebrate Recovery, I think is one. Tons of others, right? So no matter what step program you're at, no matter what step, if you're at step 1, well, this is going to be step 1.5. If you're at step 12, it's going to be 13, right? Or anywhere in between there. You need to get on the road to nutritional recovery because it has a lot of benefit to you, not only in the way your body is working mechanically and your gut's working, but also your mental acuity, your cognition, your neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine. all of things are necessary to prevent your relapse, right? And your anxiety. I mean, you need those neurotransmitters to fire off to get those feelings of well-being. Well, none of that can happen until we fix your gut, which we'll get into. You got to heal that gut, right? That's step one. If I were to have steps, right? That'd be step one in really starting to be able to metabolize your minerals, your vitamins, and fire off those neurotransmitters. Okay. So that's it on B1, very surface level, and maybe another podcast will get deeper into B1, some of the science, but could get boring. I've done all the work for you. Okay. And listen, if you need some one-on-one coaching, some one-on-one help, go to my website at 365recovery.life. If you go on that website, there's some information on how we can connect sort of one-on-one. You can jump on board for 2 weeks, just kind of see how it goes, get some information about yourself, your habits right now, as far as dietary habits. And if you choose, we can go forward with some one-on-one coaching. Secondly, if you got a group, if you're in AA Smart or one of those groups, it wouldn't be bad to introduce sort of the group study that we have. You can find that at fuelingrecovery.life. And what it is a workbook. It's 7 weeks that you go through and kind of get the base level, covering everything, of nutritional recovery. So it doesn't go really, really deep into the science and all the, the literature and the papers and the citations, because I want to give you just a base level. Let's start out at a base level to getting on the road to nutritional recovery. All right? So listen, make sure you subscribe. In your steps, you're always encouraged to help others, right? That's part of your healing. Believe it or not, just by subscribing to this channel, you're going to help others. You're going to throw it into their algorithm. They're going to see this on nutritional recovery and really get more of a benefit out of it than they're getting now, just maybe from their step group, right? Secondly, make sure you subscribe and like and hit the bell and all that good stuff. And I will see you next time on Fuel and Recovery. Hey, thanks for coming by.